Test.
Okay.
Wicka wow wow. You know what that song that is? I just said.
Wild Wild West.
Yeah, everyone knows what it is, bro. Why does everyone know what it is? It is one of the fucking worst movies ever. But you just go, wicka wah wah wah, and everyone's like,
Wow,
Wild West.
I loved the show as a kid. It was a Western originally.
Oh, you mean the show?
The show,
not
the
the
old
movie.
Western show.
Yeah.
And so I was so excited to see that movie, but then my mom didn't let me, which I would have liked it then. You know, It's a great show for a 12-year-old, movie for a 12-year-old.
It's pretty out there, but yeah.
But like compared to when I finally watched it, like 10 years after it had come out, it was exponentially worse.
Yeah, I remember thinking like it wasn't remotely violent enough.
The classic fact about that?
What?
Will Smith dropped the role of Neo for Wild Wild West.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And did you know that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe when he kicked that helmet? Saying.
Welcome to the Make It Pass show. More specifically, part 4 of East of Eden's Dog-Eared Dialogue series. Dog-Eared Dialogues, in case you're unfamiliar, is just when we have a book we love. Hence, when you got a good red book, you fold the corner pages to make little dog ears to keep your spot. And that's what we're here talking about books that we love. And in our final part here, we're getting into, of course, part 4 of the novel. And if you have not read the book yet, don't listen to this. I highly encourage you read the whole book or listen to the whole book on Audible. Feel free to go to our website. We have it listed there, as well as sign up for Audible through our link. You'll get a discount. But that said, listen to the book first, because this is easily the climax and most spoiler heavy part of the book. And it could take the wind out of your sails if you haven't read it yet. So please do. That said, though, we're ecstatic because we love this book. And again, Dog-Eared Dialogues isn't a review as much as it is just a breakdown of the themes and characters in the book and why we loved it. So with that, we are happy to get into it. And Pat, I'm gonna do a little introduction here, and then you can give us an update on the character corners.
Yes.
But East of Eden, of course, as we said, written by John Steinbeck and all that. But in the final act of East of Eden, we see Cal and Aaron Trask, brothers, the second generation of the Cain and Abel, metaphor analogy in this novel. They take full center stage. They are definitely now the main characters. And the Trask family brings the story of Cain and Abel nearly into fruition. What remains is the question we have all asked after sin. Can I be forgiven? If forgiven, can I ever be good again? If I am good, will I be blessed? Or am I cursed to be as wretched as my own evil, forever cast away from God's favor? And we'll see how that pans out. Well, hopefully you already know how it pans out, and this isn't a spoil. But anything in that summary that you want to add, or any thoughts?
No, yeah, I think that, as we're wrapping up this series, the 4th part, we're talking about good and evil, fatherhood, love or hate of a brother, inheritance, original sin, lots of like primordial little makings of the human condition. And this is where we get a new version or different version of the Cain and Abel story. In a way too, where Steinbeck, he's been using the simple story of Cain and Abel in the Bible, and now he's given us different versions of it, different ways it can turn out, different ways that things can go. And so that's where we will end up at the end.
Yeah.
And as far as characters go, there's really not a lot of new characters, a couple little side characters, but where we left off, Aaron and Cal Trask were really still young teenage boys, and throughout this, now they're young men. They're finishing up high school, heading off to college. They're doing, they're getting jobs. They're interested in women. They're
Old enough to go to war.
Seeking their fortune, old enough to go to war. And so in the part, 2 and 3, really part 3 of Aaron and Cal's dichotomy, Steinbeck, sets them up to be, even as he states it so obviously, it's given them the name Aaron and Cal. It's pretty quickly like, oh, Cain and Abel, got the C, got the A. You pretty quickly assume who's holding what role. But then as he develops these characters, he also makes them their own. They are their own people. They don't just only embody those 2 biblical characters, and we see them develop, and we see one's strengths ultimately, be their biggest weakness and lead, to their demise, and the other we see their biggest weaknesses kind of evolve into what makes them successful. And so Steinbeck develops these brothers throughout this 4th part of the book, and we have Abra, who was introduced before, and she's the love interest of the boys, and we'll see her. She was, when we spoke about her last time, she was, this kind of wise beyond her years type, and she continues to be that, but then she also develops as a person and who she wants to be and how she sees the world and how she wants her life to be. And really the main key, I think, guide, not the guide, but kind of the guardrails of the story is Lee. He's kind of the focal point for all these characters that have a relationship with him, and because he's the steady, unchanging, he's the anchor. And so Lee, throughout this part 4, he plays a pivotal role in his relationship with each one of the boys, with Abra as well as with Adam, as the story pulls through.
Yeah.
And then we'll briefly, we'll speak to 2 other folks, Ethel and Joe, who were, Ethel, a former employee of Kathy and her, and then Joe, who's basically just her henchman, her lackey.
He's kind of like I think, we talked about this, but he's like a shadow of Kathy, like just another evil incarnation. Born and lives to die, essentially, in the vein of the cycle of evil. All that said, let's get started here. So a lot to get through, but we're going to try to make sure we get into the good meat and potatoes, because there's so much to unpack here in this final quarter of the book. It's actually probably, part 4 probably makes up, it does make up pretty much over half of the book.
Like nearly a third. Yeah, a third of the book.
But 34 is, again, a transitionary chapter like we've seen before for the other parts. And we have John Steinbeck, the narrator, discussing, again, his philosophy towards the struggle of good and evil through the lens of different people. As well as the reaction to the dead. He quotes in 34, "I believe that there is one story in the world, and only one. Humans are caught in their lives, in their thoughts, in their hungers and ambitions, in their avarice and cruelty, and in their kindness and generosity too, in a net of good and evil. There is no other story. A man, after he has brushed off the dust and chips of his life, will have left only the hard, clean questions. Was it good or was it evil? Have I done well or ill?" For a moment, I just want people to reflect. Ask yourself this, because I really don't think this is not universal. This truly, I do believe, is universal, regardless of what religion you believe, what, philosophies you subscribe to. Truly, at the end of the day, after everything is brushed away and you're having to stand and reflect on your own life and existence, can you look at your own life and existence and ask, is it good or is it evil? Have I done well or ill? And I know, the Christian answer, right? I know the Christian morality perspective is like, well, all have fallen short of glory of God. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but Christ, and has totally redeemed us. and covered our sins. And so every Christian believes like, well, no, I haven't been perfect. And if I measure myself to God's standard, I haven't been good. But Christ covers that, and that's why I'm going to heaven. That's why I'm forgiven. Stepping out of that, right? And you look at just like comparatively, did you live a good life or was it an evil life? I think a lot of us can see and have some pretty intense, memories and probably conflicts arise. And we ask ourselves like, what would it average out to, if we sum it out?
Yeah.
Additionally, the other quote here, all novels, all poetry are built on the never-ending contests in ourselves of good and evil. And it occurs to me that evil must constantly respawn, while virtue is immortal. And that, I think, helps us if we take what he said initially here and we start reflecting on our own lives. That, I think, helps us kind of properly segregate what goes what in the scales and get a proper weight, right? Like, the truth is that most evil things die and do not live forever. They, like, evil destroys, and in and of itself, it can't create lasting testimonies of itself. Whereas good does. Good perseveres. Good is immortal. Good deeds live on. Good men are remembered. And so I think, like, when you look at it, it's like, okay, what in my life is of significance and is immortal? What will the memory, be, versus, what evil have I done that might be temporarily remembered or something, but most will forget. And which one is there more of? What are your thoughts?
Because I think that it's, regardless of your class or creed or status, this is something that you get to have a bit of a say in. They're like,
sure.
And so, and so there's not a, just whatever your status or standing is, no one is excused from this. And most of the world does weigh out in a worldly sense, and in your life on earth, there is the scales, the scales of good and evil, scales of justice, the scales that, do reflect, a life lived. What did you leave behind and what happened? And it's a super interesting concept around, the way evil must constantly respond, and that, good just, is a lasting force. And I think that's like kind of easily understandable, just because if you think about anything in life, that is the way it is, in the way that, or even in your own, like on a large scale, looking at like a whole nation, and or like just looking at your own like personal life.
Yeah.
Like the thing in you that's like, there's the goodness that's just is like striving forward, and then there's like the resurgences, and like an evil finds its way in and out,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the way I look at it is like, we see in history or in our own individual lives and interactions with people, there are times where evil usurps good, without a doubt. And there are times where evil comes into power without a doubt. Third Reich, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Mao Zedong dynasty in China, communist Russia, USSR. Yet all those things have wilted away and died, and like what is more immortal now is like the persevering spirit of what like surpassed those things, undermined those things. And I don't mean just like, I'm not saying like America. I'm just saying like
the people who lived through it and moved forward.
Yeah.
And like the forces of good that never died out.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so, and what do we see? Like those things crawl away, worm away, or squished, and they have to be reborn. And, some might say like right now in America, we're seeing a rebirth of those evils.
Little Sodom and Gomorrah out there.
Yeah. And I'm not even going to make a statement as to which is what evil. You know what I mean? I'm just going to say like, ask anybody around and they're going to point fingers at an evil rising to power, and like everyone's got an opinion. And I think we're at a point where it's worming its way up, it's usurping again. But I also rest in the knowledge that it will be supplanted and wilt away again. All right, moving forward, with this, I think we can kind of skip around from a few chapters because some of these final chapters are very transitionary, just to help accelerate, I think, the plot and help us understand how one thing leads to another. But one that I found pretty interesting was kind of 3738, where Adam has this like failed venture into like he just wants to do something with his money and decides to try to like refrigerate lettuce at a time where it doesn't exist.
He gets like a little Sam Hamilton hair up his butt.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's like the whole point, right? Is that he begins to live life. We see with this that, like I've talked before, Liza Hamilton called Adam out for this, but like Adam was never able to enjoy work. He's never wanted to work. He's always shirked from it. Even with Charles, he shirked from it, and he would tell Charles, we should do something with the money, and Charles would be like, well, yeah, let's work and like make something of our farm here. And Adam would just shirk away from it and be unhappy. And now he finds himself like taking pleasure in his work, regardless of if it makes him money or not, just because, it is giving him a life that is enjoyable, despite it not being easy or always successful. And we see that Adam is happy to work, even if it doesn't bear, like I said, financial fruits, especially though, if it is a work that is full of adventure and purpose. And, in him, to him, the purpose was testing himself, like testing his own mettle and seeing if he could make something happen. And I found that, pretty cool. Cause like we see like, that's kind of like almost the final arc for Adam before he's sidelined, I think. You know what I mean? Like it's like finally this man towards the end of his like youth gets to achieve something, and that achieving is realizing like there is pleasure in work if it's work that is meaningful and purposeful to you. And
exhibiting the fact that it totally flopped.
It totally flops, but like he toiled for it.
And he was content with it. He just wanted to do it.
Exactly. Aaron, we also see though, he begins to like run away into religion because previously in a few chapters ago, Abra tells him that his mom's alive. She heard it from her parents, and Aaron ran away from her then. And then we see him still not really believing his mom's alive and turning into just like overbearing religiousness and justification. And he becomes misguided due to his newfound holiness. It starts telling Cal, like, you're damned to hell. You need to like seek forgiveness. And it just comes off the wrong way. Like, the book even like John Steinbeck even says like, if he had been more subtle, Cal might have actually become a believer. In Aaron's religion. And it's not that Cal's not I don't know if it's ever said he doesn't believe in God or anything like that.
No, because he talks to God.
Yeah, he does. He prays to God. He prays to God to make him better, and to help him be good to Aaron. It's just that like the difference is like Aaron is truly regulated religion to the point where he even rebuffs Abra and says like, we can't be together because I'm probably gonna have to take a life of celibacy for the priesthood. And all of this is just like you can tell it's an escape, not genuine. And like the moment he was telling Abra all this stuff, I was like, there's no freaking way, dude. Like, let's be real. We all know someone like that who at one point or another found their spiritual walk and went into holier than thou mode, and they crashed like a stone. And most of them actually fall away from the faith, I think, in my experience. I don't know about you, but rarely, I think, do they like remain at a healthy level in their religion. They usually fall out pretty hard.
Yeah, they're making emotional responses to things in their life, which is also what we see Aaron doing. We'll see this as a trend where Aaron just continues to run away from the truth of his life and the truth of things going on in it. And so
just like Adam, Adam didn't necessarily run into religion, but he's always was running from responsibility.
Ran to the being just a vagabond, anything but
ran to Mexico.
Yeah. Anything but, facing his life. And so also this is where we see Cal and Aaron are starting to grow up, and Steinbeck will continue to kind of polarize and juxtapose the two characters, where you do have Aaron, high horse, celibacy, wants to be a priest, and living in kind of a naive, self-made, false reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cal is kind of going the other way, where he's sneaking into gambling houses at night. He's learns of his mother's profession in these chapters. He learns about the whorehouse. He's drinking, staying out at night, and so, but he's kind of making his own way in the world in this way, and we'll see where Steinbeck kind of there. While they would seemingly, you if you just took two people and said, okay, he's taken a vow of celibacy, he's joining the priesthood, and this guy's late night gambling, going to brothels, you'd be like, okay, I now understand the trajectory of their life.
One is holy, one is sinful,
and the direction they're headed. The journey has been set, but we'll see that kind of. Maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe there's a choice. Maybe there's a choice.
Gross that you put that there.
Huh.
Just kidding. All right. We see a moment too, I think, that is really sweet, that begins also to show through the cracks that this might not have to be the story of Cain and Abel. And it is when Cal is arrested and his father has an opening in his clouded vision and sees his son for the first time and realizes this is my son, whom I have no idea what he's doing. And we see Adam and Cal kind of have a heart-to-heart. And Adam's acceptance of Cal from, being locked up and stuff creates a devotion in Cal to his father that is almost religious. And Cal realizes the most important thing to him in his life is Adam's love and appreciation. And Adam says, when Cal gets up to go make coffee, I guess Steinbeck says about Adam feels a warmness wash over him. He had opened his eyes and he had an exceeding desire to live and get out and make a life, right? And this is kind of the thing that almost I think kind of brings excitement and livelihood to Adam after everything. But we see, Cal in this conversation, Adam is open about it finally and opens up about, Kathy, and Cal commits to protecting his brother. Adam's afraid it would destroy Aaron, and Cal says, I commit to be my brother's keeper and keep Aaron from knowing about Kathy. He's like, what if we even get Aaron out of here sooner so it lowers the risk of him, graduating high school and walking around town as a grown man and finding his mother that way. And Adam seems open to the idea. With that as well, we see with Tim Schull, Cal encounters Kathy. And in this encounter, there is a pretty sick moment, I think, where Cal looks into her and he asks, were you like this as a child? And Kathy gets angry and, gives him eyes like daggers and shuts down. And it kind of does the same thing to Cal that it did for Adam, where Cal feels empowered and not afraid of her anymore. And he realized he's not her. And he's like, I'm not like you. I'm my own person. I'm not just evil. There's also good in me. And, he tells her he could see, because she's at one point, turn that light off. Hurts my eyes. And he, sees us that the light makes her afraid. And I thought that was really cool because it's, I think very alluding to scripture. John 1:5, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. And John 3:20, for everyone practicing evil hates the light and does not come to the light lest his deeds should be exposed. And I think this is just again hammering, focusing on Kathy is already our real Cain. Kathy is the marked Cain who, no one can kill and who will squirm as an evil worm until the end of her days. And she hates the light. And, she'd rather live in darkness than see reality.
Yeah, in that encounter with them, Cal's realization of that, it's you don't like it's a beautiful scene where he just like his father was freed. In that moment, he is freed too. Because in the previous chapter, he's kind of learned of his mom for a long time, but then in the previous chapter before this, he, the drunk family friend mistakenly takes him to what's called the circus. Described as the circus, where he sees
all the horrors, all the horror things,
and
probably the most like depraved horror things you could see.
Yeah, and it's like mom's the queen of the damned, there, and like, and so, just like with, we've said this before, with all the people who, Kathy hates the people who can see through her stuff, and so, in this moment too, it's been the people who have a piece of Kathy in them
that see her
who can see her for what she is, and so like the piece of Cal in him that is Kathy, in this instance, is his saving grace.
Oh yeah,
it is his protector and his ability to see through her.
Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you could put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution. Yeah, and she even notes that like she sees Charles in him. And it's like I think that too is like also like a reminder of her sin, right? And also probably why she wants the lights off, because she sees Cal and she sees like her sin with Charles. And Charles' final, who knows if it was a prank or knife in her, right? But just like, I leave you this half if you're still married.
Right.
Because it's like, I know you're a bad woman. And he probably anticipated like she left him as soon as they got there.
Yeah.
But didn't anticipate they'd still be married on paper.
Right.
Going forward too, though, we see like with this, Kathy's paranoia begins to spiral, and she remembers about this woman who blackmailed her and begins thinking about it. And I don't really think the blackmail is all that important, but it is. I think the significance of it is to show that she's starting to reap what she's harvested. She's starting to reap everything. And this is like, I don't know about you, man. I worked in law enforcement, so like I've seen so many people having what they sowed come out and come to collect on them, right? Like the fruit of their crop being their downfall. And so I think of this like with it's Job 4:8. As I have observed, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble reap the same. And I just think like right now, this is like the perfect image of like Kathy. She's probably in her 50s, maybe not even 50 yet, late 40s. And we see her starting to just like see the fields and fruits, and it's all starting to come back to her in paranoia and like these haunted ghosts, these echoes of people who she doesn't know if they're alive or dead, but she knows they know something and is starting to wonder if she really did the right thing and put it to bed, and is having to keep track of who's who.
Yeah. And of a murder she'd committed a decade before and planted in the ground. The evidence was found there. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and
she's not even like current day being confronted with it. It's just the memory that someone had said something in passing and is now reaching out with a letter. Right. But yeah, so we see this also manifest in the life of her pimp, whose name is Joe. who's her right-hand man and enforcer. I think he's also supposed to kind of seem like a little bit like a plant or, a crop planted who's grown now so much that in her weakness is seeking to overcome her.
Mm-hmm.
But he is also of evil nature and evil roots, and he will also be kind of brought down by his own folly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like his time, we know immediately just from like his thoughts and minds and his behavior, like this guy's not long. Like this is not going to be the hero. I thought he was for sure going to be the snake that takes her out.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think Joe walks off into the sunset with the money and the pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like they're just all these people, especially like for Kathy, Joe, and Ethel, these people, they're like drowning rats.
Yeah.
Like, and like, just like
rats in a bucket.
Yeah. They're just going to get on top of the other one.
Yeah.
And there's always a plan to like, at some point, I will get on top of the other one.
Yep.
And to survive, I'll do that. And then that's like kind of the underlying driver of this paranoia for both of them because also Joe's he's paranoid too that she's going to find out the stories he's weaving and everything else, and then it snowballs on him.
Yeah. This going also in these chapters, we're talking about like 40 through 44 here. I see something that I think, is definitely John Steinbeck having fun. I imagine he's sat here thinking, what are all the things that the Bible doesn't say about Cain?
Mm-hmm.
And what was it like to be Cain and to be told of God and to be able to talk to God directly and know what is expected of you, and God is truly the source of creation, right? And so like I think he went through and fantasized about all these different aspects of like who Cain might be, and I found it very compelling here because like, yes, of course, like I don't believe anything that is personified of Cal here is biblical, right?
Right.
But I do think it's totally fine to use this as a metaphor and like to challenge a reader to consider like you've probably just thought of Cain as a jealous, evil brother.
Right.
And you've probably never once thought like Cain might have loved God. And Cain might have even helped Abel with his own gift out of love and like desire of acceptance and appreciation from God. Like I'm not saying there, but it's certainly, I think, appropriate to wonder, right?
It's like the same way Sam Hamilton was like, maybe God didn't like vegetables.
Yeah.
Maybe he liked meat.
Well, if you think about it, if Cain is bringing crops, Cain probably fed those crops to Abel's animals.
Right.
And helped keep him alive. But anyways, I say that all because we see Cal begins to make this extravagant plan not only to fulfill Adam's request of him of looking after Aaron and fulfill his father's commands, but to reward his father with a gift as well as a gift for Aaron. And Cal begins to set out this plan and encourages Adam. He's like, hey, if you graduate high school a year early, as a gift to our father, I will pay for your way to college. I'll help you with the money. And like in this moment, like I had this like epiphany. I was like, dude, Aaron's gift isn't even really Aaron's gift. It's Cal's gift. And not only that, but Cal's wants to provide his own gift to show like he doesn't want to take away from Aaron's accomplishment. He doesn't want his father to be like, oh, Cal, look how you've helped your brother get here and supported him. He wants Aaron to have his moment, and he wants himself to have his moment. And so, even though this gift of graduating early and being studious and going to college appears in the front, like in the beginning of Aaron, like being based on Aaron's effort, we all truly know as the reader, like this is Cal's effort and, him fulfilling his promises. And we know that this is dangerous, right? Like if Adam fails to appreciate Cal, like this is seriously setting up to be some deep pain and hurt, and, a lack of appreciation and acceptance. And it only kind of is, we know what's going to happen. It's going to propel us closer to the Cain and Abel story. And, additionally in all this, Cal begins to work to save up money in order to give it to his father as a recompense for the failed lettuce business. Even though Cal is not in any way responsible for that, he still sees it as an opportunity to provide a gift that would be seen as an appreciation to his father. And we know that Adam's rejection of this gift and a genuine rebuke of Cal's intentions without any gentleness or kindness hardens Cal's heart to his father's desires and creates a vindictiveness that can only really be quenched by punishing Eren and in turn punishing his father. And I think lastly, we see the symbolization of like God's blessing to Abel and withholding of blessing to Cain, and that Adam buys this beautiful gold watch. And what is a watch if not something that you can take with you no matter where you go? And so he kind of buys and creates this blessing to give to Eren, knowing that if Eren does this, he's going off to school and he wants his son to remember always how proud my dad is of my sacrifice, my gift to him. And there's no thought into a gift for Cal.
Yeah.
And in fact, he even says like, Eren's just the brighter and smarter and more driven boy. And Lee's like, well, Adam, like you don't know that. And Lee can see through it all because he knows what Cal's doing and Cal's trying to keep Lee a secret. And he knows like, Adam, like sure, Eren's bright, but like Eren would be doing and driving for nothing if it wasn't for Cal's, encouragement and pursuit. And Cal's also doing this other secret gift. So you might be surprised down the road.
And that's one of Adam's downfalls throughout the book too, is his also false realities he paints.
Yeah, he characterizes everybody in a fantasy, just like, Eren tends to do with Abra.
Right.
Or his own mother.
Yeah.
Eren goes off to college too in these chapters, and he follows in his father's footsteps. And he creates this fantasized version of Abra in his letters that is absolutely impossible for Abra to live up to. And even though Abra is definitely not a Cain character, she's not Kathy, she knows, like, I can't be this picture perfect woman he has in mind. And, Lee even tells her, like, yeah, this is not good. Like, this idealized version of yourself that Eren is presenting could actually be, it's probably actually harmful to you and your guys' relationship. It's kind of not, it's not very healthy. It's unrealistic standards. And it's just, again, like showing like, Adam did that to Kathy and was, Adam basically died when it was revealed, like this person is not who they imagined. And so like the question is like, when Eren finds out who his mother really is, will he have that death? When, like when he comes home from college and Abra's still Abra and not this fantasized version of her in his letters home, will their love endure? So that's kind of the prognosis on the themes and all that from 40 to 44. Anything in there that you want to touch on before we go into 45 through 50?
I think, really one, like it's a little side plot in the story, that becomes a little more prevalent, but it just is like, Lee and Abra's relationship because Abra's dad at home is
a douche.
Yeah, he's just kind of he's just your
total prick, just drunk.
Yeah, just your your arrogant businessman who maybe didn't like earn the business he's in, and or just like non-present father, and so.
And it's never said, I think, that he beats her or her mom or anything like that, but he's still an evil man by all regards of like. It's shown that he's disrespectful. She tells stories of how like he has a temper that is unjust. And it's like, you don't have to be this picture of violence to be an evil, unkind person.
Yeah. And I see him as kind of like this weaselly, like low tier local politician.
Sure.
Just kind of like lives off of rumors and kind of
trying to make a name.
Yeah, trying to make a name, always in the mix.
Yeah.
But really has nothing of substance to offer.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Lee becomes that surrogate, like loving, accepting, encouraging good father to her. I love that like their relationship is there's never a moment where there's any alluding to like Lee having a lust for her because he's never had a wife. It's purely that like Lee recognizes like, oh my gosh, for like the first time ever, a decent woman might be a part of this family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And as far as we know, this is the only relationship with a woman he's had in his whole life.
Yeah,
right?
outside of like a servant relationship.
Right.
Like even with Liza Hamilton, he acted the servant, and with
Mhm.
Kathy, he acted the servant.
And right, and he's like been around him and seen him, but never had that relationship. And from his origin story being like literally like torn from his mother's womb and then raised by men.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like he had not had this type of, he just hasn't had a relationship with a woman in any form, one way or the other. And theirs is just pure and good.
It's so wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
Especially too, where we see like later on, like he just asks Cal, like, please check on Abra. Ask her if she wants to come over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she asks Cal about Lee, and it's just a very wholesome relationship. Going forward, John Steinbeck is confronted and uses his own lived experience for an example of Tim Schull in the openings here. World War I is pretty much on the doorstep of the town of Salinas, and that, like, you know, the war front is here. Will and Cal's plan to buy the beans and sell them at a higher price is manifesting. And soon, you know, the draft for World War I will begin. And this story opens up here where John Steinbeck is talking about him and his sister Mary, or was it cousin? I think it was his sister.
Sister.
And how in Salinas they made fun of this German American man who, and I say German American because he was an immigrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a German man, didn't show any love or allegiance to Germany, had a business. And he was kind and smiled, and he saw them as children, and he was excited when he was walking the street to say hello to the children. And they made fun of him, and they yelled at him, and they taunted him, and he wept and ran away.
Mm-hmm. And because World War I was happening at this point, right?
It was happening at this point, but it wasn't really there necessarily in Salinas yet,
Right,
where
but-
like their young men were dying.
But they know that Germans are bad.
Yeah,
like
that's the whole
they,
belief.
like that's like from these little children. For the little children's point of view, is Germans are the bad guys.
Mhm.
But-
Well, and they see the whole town of adults. You know, they have the mob mentality, right? Everyone else
Mhm.
says he's bad. Everyone else talks poorly about him. No one wants to go to his business. They say
Mhm.
we can't shop there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, even though everyone was choosing to be evil to this man based only on his heritage, there still existed the moral knowledge that their acts were wrong, and that partaking in the acts of the many did not excuse them.
Mm.
You know, Steinbeck says like he always regretted how he treated that man, because he realizes like he was just a man, and
Mhm.
he was probably a good man too.
Mm-hmm.
And the conviction of having known what was done was evil, and the desire to repent and experience redemption is within all of mankind, even if not outwardly expressed. Because the truth is, like, probably everyone who burnt down his business and made fun of him felt awful,
Mm-hmm.
especially years later. In these chapters too, we see that Adam is appointed to a position of authority as a man who delivers a judgment, right? He's kind of even being elevated more into a symbolic god, where he is able to almost divinely like direct the lives of young men in Salinas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's convicted with this, you know, notion that his conscious thoughts tell him, you know, he has to send boys to die in a war, not based on if they're good or bad boys, right? But it's just,
Mhm.
and it's not based on if they're poor or rich. It's simply like, are they physically fit enough? Are they mentally fit enough? Are they of age?
Mm-hmm.
All right, it doesn't matter what their parents want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to accept that they're good for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's at all times being eaten alive, because he knows like his boys should also eventually face this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not morally right for him to send other people's boys to war and try to like exclude and exempt his own.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like another kind of Tim Schull moment. I think this serves, again, like I said, to elevate Adam to this metaphorical, you know, Jehovah. But it also is a Tim Schull moment where like Lee reminds Adam, like, well, you have a choice. You may do this or not. You don't have to sit in this role.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam's convicted. He's like, yeah, but if I didn't do it, I'd be subjecting another man to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's afraid that if another man were to do it, they would actually not send his boys out of like preference or favor for him,
Mm-hmm.
which he would almost feel more guilt about.
Mm-hmm.
And it quote in chapter 49, he says, you know, this is later on when he's dealing with like the rejection of Cal's gift. He says, I send boys out. I sign my name and they go out. And some will die and some will lie helpless without arms and legs. Not one will come back untorn. Son, do you think I could take a profit on that? I don't want the money, Cal. And the lettuce, I don't think I did that for a profit. And so this is like Adam's rejection of Cal's gift. And I think it's like very intended to allude to like God's rejection of Cain's, of course. Because Adam struggles to see this nuance of both evil and good coexisting in one person. You know, he struggles to see that that's what makes a person, and he only sees the good sometimes. He cannot understand that his son, you know, made this money with good intentions, while teaming up with Will Hamilton to do so and taking advantage of, you know, war.
Mm-hmm.
But like that doesn't make it evil, even though he colluded with someone who might have had, you know, greedy intentions.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think this is actually very much in line with what we believe, you know, is the character of God. Psalms 5:4 here, for you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness, nor shall evil dwell with you. And if there's any ounce of evil in a gift,
Mm-hmm.
it cannot be accepted by Adam,
Mm-hmm.
just like it can't be accepted by God.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it looks to be like, I think it, like Adam here is a reflection of God in that he must refuse Cal's gift because it is woven with the greed of Will Hamilton and tainted. Whereas Aaron's gift, quote unquote gift, is entirely good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's entirely motivated by good. And what's woven into it is Cal's desire to respect and fulfill his father's wishes and to provide him a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
restore his name.
yeah. But Cal doesn't get that recognition in Aaron's gift.
Mm-hmm.
And in his own gift, it just looks kind of dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot be accepted. It's against Adam's character, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, before moving forward on it, you know, I wanted to see like your thoughts because that's like a huge pivotal, you know, moment, right? Of like the gift and the rejection of the gift, and
Yeah, because you know Cal's saved up
an
you know,
insane amount of money,
a lot of money and he's a young kid still. Like I mean,
Yeah,
relatively young. You know,
like
he's
Instagram influencer money at 17.
Yeah, big time money, and it's just like it's such a gut punch because you see the setup for it
Mm-hmm.
going all the way back to the gift of Adam and Charles,
Yeah,
the
and
dog and the knife.
you know it needs to happen.
Yeah, and like Adam found the dog at the woodpile to give to Cyrus, and Charles worked his butt off chopping and selling wood to buy that knife. And that was the pivotal thing, one of the major pivotal thing in Charles' relationship with Adam. And then we see it coming for Cal and Aaron in this gift. And it's just like exaggerated tenfold, and like the stakes of it as far as like the effort put forth and you know the intention of this kid and the thought put forward to I'm going to go out and I'm going to make this money, make my dad proud. We're not going to be the laughing stock at the town anymore from this, you know, business blunder. And you just see it coming from so far away though, and is a gut punch when you know, because you're like, I feel like as a reader, I was on like Cal's side of this
100%
leading up to it, like,
Oh yeah,
and like,
yeah. At this point, I had lost all favor of Aaron.
mm-hmm.
Like there was a point when they were boys, I empathized with Aaron, and
during like the archery encounter, right?
Yeah,
like
and
shooting the rabbit, and you're like, this mean kid and this good natured boy, and
when Aaron cries in Abra's arms, just wanting a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But now, like, Aaron is so honestly, like, he's almost inhuman, right? Like he's kind of inhuman, but on the other side that Kathy is, like, he doesn't care at all about, you know, showing thankfulness and appreciation to any member of his family, let alone Abra, who literally waits on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just totally internally focused on like what he wants to do and what would be fun for him or good for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, yeah, I was 100% on Cal's side here, and I was just cringing, dude. I remember listening to it in the car, and I was yelling like, "No, please, no, dude, don't let it be."
Yeah, and because you know, and like we touched on too, like the fact that all of Aaron's gift was all Cal's doing too.
Yeah,
He worked hard, sweat on his and sweat off his brow to pay the money to get him through high school and send him to college faster.
Yep.
And but then also at the same time, Adam's rejection of the gift, while like it's one of those situations where it's like you didn't, like when I react to my kids this way, where I'm like, I was right, but I didn't really handle that correctly.
Yep.
Right. And that's what's happening in this case, where you have, like, from Adam's perspective, when he's talking about, this money is, the reason why prices skyrocketed was because of the war, profiteering off of the backs of, and the blood of other boys. And so
Which I get, but like,
yeah,
I don't even think is like necessarily wrong. Like,
right.
that's everyone was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And even the farmers were resenting the fact that they didn't get to do it.
And they still made good money.
Yeah. And it's just like, I know, we know that Adam's burdened by this consciousness and he can't see it.
Yeah. And one thing about Adam, though, is that Adam's never cared about money.
True.
He's he's just been black and white about it the whole time.
I didn't even think about that.
Like from like the day one of like receiving his father's inheritance, he wasn't like, he didn't want to keep the money to be rich.
Mm-hmm.
When him and Charles are talking about it, he's just like, Charles is like, can we keep the money? Like, this might be bad money.
Yeah.
And Adam's just like, in one sense, you could say, Adam in that moment too, he's just black and white, like, this is our inheritance, it's fine. Also, in this same way, you could look at this as like, Adam got his first inheritance, his first big break off of war profiteering.
Oh yeah, true,
like,
dude. That's a good connection.
And then if you go back to like Adam's epiphany when him and Lee and Sam Hamilton are talking about the story of Cain and Abel, and all of a sudden he pauses because they're like, they're all three talking about it, and they're like, this is the story of every man. And Adam's like, well, I don't know about every man, basically. And then he kind of stops and he's like, oh wait, no, this is my story too. In that same way that like he is having to, he's come a long way from evaluating his life, knowing where he got his first inheritance from, and then also even like the inheritance of Charles to him, he gave half to Kathy. He didn't go to court over it. He just gave it to her. Like when it was time to do the lettuce thing, he wasn't in pursuit of money. He was in pursuit of doing what he wanted to do with his life. And so he has transitioned to money for him is different now. And throughout the book too, like money, inheritance, I should say, is kind of alluded to as original sin in the way it's passed down, like from one to the next, and like blood money or bad money, or like we'll see later on where inheritance comes from a whorehouse, or where inheritance comes from a war profiteer, or where inheritance comes from these different places. And so it's like you are, by accepting it, you are bound to those things. And so Adam, I think, has a different perspective on it now, and so that's why he says to his son, if you want to give me a good gift, live a good life. And so in this moment of rejection, while he did the right thing, it was also like he didn't do it correctly of how you should approach your son who's worked so hard. But like, he is not wrong in that, like, in this moment of teaching a lesson is like, if you want to give me a good gift, live a good life. And this difference between making a living and making a life, where he has kind of come to understand now, like the Sam Hamilton version of making a life, not a living. Just how Sam Hamilton never really made a dime, but he had a really full life.
Yeah, and I think, it's unfortunate here because we know with Adam's intentions, though, he spurred his son in the other direction. And Cal is deeply hurt by this and begins to he doesn't even really sulk, but he festers in this anger. And Lee sees that, and Lee tells him, like, you can choose between good or evil. You do not have to go punish your brother for this. And you don't need to take your anger out. Your father is misguided in like his actions, but his intentions are good. And he serves as this voice of morality within, the consciousness of Cain, leading up to Abel's murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see that Cal succumbs to this hatred, though. He does choose actively to no longer be his brother's keeper.
Mm-hmm.
And in his heart, he desires to kind of get recompense against his father by, spoiling Aaron's quote unquote like virtuousness and show him the truth of his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And in taking Aaron to see his mother, he says, I have a present for you, Aaron.
Yeah.
And it's veiled in kindness. And it very much comes to the feeling of like post rejection from God, Cain putting his arm around Abel and be like, oh, I want to show you something in the field.
Yeah. It's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Dr. Jekyll.
Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like kind of like shift,
Mhm.
just like the like, phoom, the darkness is here now.
Yeah.
Right.
And we all know too,
Yeah.
because it like, especially if you're listening to it in Audible, the narrator at the end of this chapter just makes it so ominous in the way Cal approaches Aaron, puts his arm around him. He's like, come on, I want to show you. It's over here in town.
Yeah.
I'll show you this present. And he gets Aaron, drunk and then shows him his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron completely rejects her. And in this like, anger and frustration and this, shattering of this image of who his mom is out there in the world, maybe, or who she was, Aaron runs away again.
Mm-hmm.
He runs from the ugliness to join the army and sign up. And that also is the manifestation of Adam's fears.
Mm-hmm.
That his boys or one of them would be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
But also we see that Kathy's fantasy of her son and this idea that she would, run away to another city and have her wealth, and Aaron would join her and accept her as his mother, and idolize her. That's the word.
Yeah.
Her whole life has only loved herself until she saw Aaron.
Yeah.
And this fantasy of him accepting her as is, that she would be loved. She's never had this desire of acceptance by anyone, and she's never feared anyone else's rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, she has always desired control and only been frustrated at failure to control someone. But here, she has genuine fear and desire for acceptance and love.
Mm-hmm. And she has this weird, like, perverse redemption version. Like, the fever dream she puts out there of her, like, fantasy in her own mind. It is like, it's weird because it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to be like this woman who'd never been with her son all of a sudden wants to take him to New York and just be with him and live together. But the way it's described and written out, it's like this, like, in her version of redeeming her life is still like this weird perverse version of it. And it's like, and I think that Steinbeck kind of uses it as like a kind of a nail in the coffin on like, she's evil. Like even her version of like redemption is just a weird perverse thing.
Yeah. In no way is it like forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
In no way is it like recognition of her past acts and pardoning them.
And it's selfish.
Yeah, it's entirely selfish and under the concept of like, all of my wrongs will be veiled.
Mm-hmm.
All my son will know is that I'm a wealthy woman who wants to spoil him.
Mm-hmm.
And in this rejection by Aaron, she realizes like all of her life has been for naught, and she exists as this like wretched crone that only has ghosts and anxieties to kind of haunt her. And Aaron, as he's always done, like I said, he runs away from this ugliness and pain in his life. And it's, very much like just as Adam hid from the world and the hard truths, and kind of, Adam had his moment of death, but like Samuel Hamilton was there to pull him out of it, and there's, with Aaron running away, there's no chance for him to be pulled out.
And one thing I think I missed when initially reading it, but now like reviewing it was like, did Cal like laugh at him leaving, like in this moment of
I can't remember.
right, because I was reading like a little like review, and it just, but like it mentioned, and I couldn't remember exactly, but like it basically it said that, you know, that in this moment of Aaron's screaming of his like seeing his mother's way, and Cal has like a sadistic laugh while it's happening, and it's just back to the like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I can never remember which one's the bad one.
Jekyll.
That one. So, you know, it's like, but he's just like fully unleashed in that moment. Just this, like, you know, which I think we'll see, like that for him, like him laughing in this moment, I think also like helps us understand the grief and guilt to come.
Mm-hmm.
Like him reflecting upon that moment is just like that really, it just paints a solid picture of where his guilt's coming from.
Yeah, I laughed at my brother's death, you know, metaphorical death. We see here, though, this, you know, conclusion to Kathy pretty much where she embodies, you know, from earlier on, the quote from Steinbeck. Let me scroll back up to it. You know, and it occurs to me that evil must constantly respawn while virtue is immortal. And we see Kathy wilting away, you know, and like evil is dying here. Kathy literally has death hanging around her, in that she has a vial of a lethal dose of morphine that she keeps on a chain around a necklace, in case the pain, whether physical or emotional, becomes so severe that she cannot withstand it any longer. And Kathy, having been denied any redemption via Aaron's rejection, runs away from the ugliness of her sins into this fantasy of her own mind. She desires to escape so desperately that she commits suicide, imagining she could become so small in this, you know, morphine-induced, you know, what's the term? Not haven, but hallucination. That she would become so small that nothing can find her and hold her accountable for these actions, that she can run away from them. And she uses, you know, the story of Alice in Wonderland as like this, you know, imaginary fantasy. She'd run away with Alice, and Kathy dies, but however, you know, in her final moments, it's not this blissful escapism, but it's a haunting by the ghosts and incarnations of those who she has harmed along the way. Her parents are there. And additionally, like, she sees Charles, and she sees all these ghosts of the past, and then she sees Cal there smiling at her, essentially. And in this last final act of, you know, I think it's actually evil now that I've been thinking about it. Originally I was like, maybe it was a final act of like hope of forgiveness, but I don't think it was. I think it was a final act of vindictiveness, because she knows the only way Aaron will probably know that she's dead, and she can kind of make him think like he's killed her, is to leave her this inheritance. I mean, leave him the inheritance of her stuff. And she leaves all of her things, all of her possessions and money to Aaron. And I think that really is her way of like telling Aaron, like, you killed me. And she wants him to feel guilt with every dime of hers that he would ever spend. However, that's pretty much thwarted by Cal, because Aaron never will know. He enlisted in the army before he could ever find out she's dead.
And also, so with like where we see Aaron run once again into join the army, run away from his problems. There's also a quote from Lee talking about mankind, and him and Adam are discussing kind of the state of men at this time, and this is before Adam knows about Aaron joining the military, but Adam just says, I know little about a great many things, but not enough about one thing to make a living at it. And he talks about how Sam Hamilton saw this coming, and he hated the age of the specialist, you know, and then Lee's response is the part I wanted to focus on here, which is Lee says, maybe the knowledge is too great and the men becoming too small, maybe kneeling down to atoms. They are becoming atom-sized in their souls. Maybe a specialist is a coward missing the world. And later on, Lee will go on to critique Aaron as a coward in his own like self-conversation, how he's like about him going and running away. And so it's like there's a couple pieces here, just even on like a personal note, I resonate with I know a little about a great many things, but not enough about one thing. Like kind of the jack of all trades thing. I think it's as common to man. And then, but Lee's commentary on the state of mankind, where everybody's kind of shrinking into these little specialized things and becoming cowards and missing out on the world, because what Adam has arrived at is kind of through like his relationship with Sam Hamilton and wanting to be like him, is wanting to be a man who sees the whole world for what it is and engages the whole world for all its beauty and all its parts. But his son, Aaron, pigeonholed himself over and over and over again as when he focused on whatever it would be throughout his life and all the examples we've gone through. And then whenever he's faced with the reality of the world, he misses it by kind of cowering out of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Final chapters of the book, 51 through 55. We see that, all of also like Kathy's, works of hatred and manipulation are burned away. And we see like another example, I think, of Tim Scholl, right? Where the sheriff, finds out, Kathy's dead, and he catches Joe, and, there's like this chase and pursuit, and he shoots and kills Joe while he's on the run. And has these photos of all these men of power and status of the community, politicians and preachers and teachers. And there are all these photos of them in, of course, the most debauched scenarios in this whorehouse. And he, burns them all, because after like talking with Adam and stuff and trying to, ask Adam about it, and consulting a couple other people, because he realizes like this is something that could be used for evil. And even though these men were doing wrong things, to bring it to the light would destroy the community, and, it would be used perversely. And we see like a moment where the sheriff was like, I could punish these men, or I could destroy this and destroy their sins and pardon them and do a moment of good. And there's a line here, I wish I would have written it out here in a quote, I just thought of it, but it's like the line of like when he's confronting one of the men and telling him like, I'm gonna burn these.
Oh yeah.
And it was like a line about how the pardoned will forever hate his pardoner because that man knows his sin.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like the sheriff's taking on all of Kathy's sin and these men's sin and choosing good. And he knows because of that, he will never be appreciated really by these men. They will always hold a little bit of judgment for him, but that's kind of the cost of doing good, right? That's the kind of the cost of making like such a righteous choice. I see here too, there's this like note here about money and inheritance, as a metaphor for original sin throughout the book. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, like, so, because then you also have, at the same time that the sheriff is giving this act of mercy, and he burns these guys passed away, and they're kind of free and clear, and they don't have to live under this, because she'd been using these pictures as blackmail for them and controlling them. Now like he's freed them, and also like, and then I wasn't sure about it, but in the same chapter and in the same parts, like Cal is also burning the money he saved.
Yes.
And like, and so there's also something here around like the permanence of burning something is, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
And so like,
it's not like Cal can go back and be like, hey, those got destroyed. Can you give me those bills again?
Right.
Exactly. So it's done. It's gone.
It's a done deal. And so while the sheriff is doing it out of like an act of mercy, Cal is kind of it's hard to say because in the moment, Cal's he's grief stricken over, what he's done, what's happening, and he gets drunk and he's just lighting it and burning it.
$1,000 bills.
Yeah. Back when they need to start making those again, by the way, $1,000 bills, but he's just burning them up. And so, his act is like this. He's not freeing himself of anything, but at the same time, he is like moving forward, even though it's through like a kind of a sad means. He's like just upset and drunk and doing it. He's also like permanently moving forward in his own way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I kind of viewed it a little bit as like, an act of like self, not retribution, but like,
self-abasement or like.
I think it really encapsulates that verse that I think it's in, I want to say Isaiah, maybe Daniel, but it's like how God says, your burnt sacrifice I never desired. And it's kind of like, though, like this is like Cal's belief, like burning this is a sacrifice that might help cleanse me and move forward. And it's like, what God desired was
contrite spirit.
Yeah, contrite spirit, a good spirit, a good heart, obedience, and not the burnt sacrifices. And like I could see where Cal's heart's at. And so does Lee. Like Lee's talking to him in this moment because Lee finds him burning the bills.
Yeah. And
Lee's like, this won't bring your brother back. This won't undo your sin. And you need to accept that. And, a near identical reenactment of God confronting Cain, Adam confronts Cal on the whereabouts of his brother Aaron at one point. Adam asks, do you know where your brother is? No, I don't, said Cal. He hasn't been home for 2 nights. Where is he? How do I know? Said Cal. Am I supposed to look after him? And that's in chapter 52. And it's like, this act is over. The deed is done. And Cal almost immediately feels his guilt of his actions. But, and here we see almost exactly identical play out of God confronting Cain. Where is your brother? And Cain saying, what am I, my brother's keeper? And, the blood of Abel cries out to God. And it's immediately clear here that like Adam is aware that like Aaron is in harm's way. He's in trouble. And that's when we kind of get like Cal having this deep regret over what he's done, getting drunk, atoning and trying to atone for his sins with the burnt offering. Moving forward though, we see too like there's this part in chapter 3 where the main point of this one I thought was Lee's quote to Abra, but before that he's talking to her about her relationship with Aaron and how she hasn't loved him for a long time because of this imagination that he had for her, this fantasy, and that it wasn't her, and the rift that created, and how she's come to appreciate and find an attraction to Cal because Cal he is fully human, unlike Aaron was, and that she has a comfort in knowing that like she can be fully human with him. And Lee says in reference to Cal, he's crammed full to the top with every good thing and every bad thing, and it's what makes him human, and makes him balanced. And Abra is struggling with her own picture of herself and identity. And Lee has this beautiful quote about how once you accept you don't have to be perfect, you can truly be good. Is that it? Is that what you find comforting in Cal, that you don't have to be perfect with him like you did with Aaron? You can be yourself. You can be good in that. And she was like, yeah, I suppose so. Which I think is, a beauty. Of course, we could dive into that for hours, but like that's truly the human condition. And why we find, love in the partners we do, because, those partners we recognize in them, they're not perfect. We love them despite of it. But what's more important is that we see in them their acceptance of us, and that they don't need us to be perfect. And it creates this desire in us to be good for them and to live a good life.
And
Go ahead.
And because at this point now they start, then Cal and Abra start.
Yeah, they're dating.
They're dating. They're together.
Yep. And she kind of is there to help him through, what's gone on and what he's struggling with. And, at this point, too, I think it's kind of poetic in that, like, after Adam finds out about Aaron joining the military, he has an illness that isn't quite defined. And part of me wonders if, like, you could say, like, it's, pressure in the brain with a tumor and causing, difficulty of vision accelerated by stress. Or if, John Steinbeck really just wanted to be a metaphor to God's inability to dwell with Cain in, like, essentially casting Cain out and Cain no longer being under the eye of God. Whereas, like, Cal really, like, can't spend time with his father. His father is struggling to read, his vision is bad, and it's almost like Adam cannot see Cal anymore. All he can see is, the grief of his son being gone. This is, technically the death of Aaron, right? And at this point in the story, Steinbeck has revealed Aaron's traits of morality and virtue to be little more than a crutch for his passivity and his naivety to life. Aaron's predisposition to run from hard facts of life ultimately leads to his demise, which we can see is, he dies in the war. And I don't think Steinbeck wants us to blame Cal for that. That was Aaron's choice and a result of Aaron's actions. And I think it's wrong to be like, Cal is the reason Aaron's dead. I think you can definitely say Cal's the reason Aaron joined the army. But the death of Aaron was a result of Aaron's choices, which is, I think, another, like, huge crack in the Cain and Abel story here, and starting to show, like, to us as the audience, like, Steinbeck is trying to show us that this doesn't, like, the cycle can be broken. And as long as people recognize that, like, you cannot blame one person for the actions entirely of another. And in the final moments of the book, after Adam finds out about Aaron's death, he has a stroke and he's on death's door. The doctors are skeptical how long he'll live. They say, he could die tonight. He could die in months or years. This condition's not necessarily, like, down to a science. And knowing that time is of the essence, Lee is, like, this kind of motivation and this manifestation of, the need and desire to make things right and not waste time when time is of the essence. And he pushes Cal to come with him and Abra to be by his father's side and seek out forgiveness and pardoning. And Lee gives this beautiful, kind of speech from a pulpit almost to Adam, like, Adam, if you're there, if there's any part of you that recognizes anything around here, recognize your son before you and give him your blessing so that, the cycle can be broken, that he doesn't have to be, stuck in the cycle of the Cain and Abel story. And, we're all holding our breath for this culmination, this final moment. And Adam, he can only get a word out, and we could see, like, he's struggling to speak, and it's taking all of his body to, like, all of his energy to, like, move his body just a hair and raise his hand to Cal. And, we're all desperately listening as readers, or reading as readers, like, line after line. It's just like, please do not punish him. Please do not condemn him. And because this may be the final words you uttered to your son. And he says, Timshel. And, to Cal, this is essentially a pardoning and also a call to make the choice again. And just as Adam is now in this moment, he takes the time to, like, with his final word to, edify this and make it clear that, like, I'm not condemning you. I am making the choice to pardon you, to show you grace. And Cain is banished for his crimes, but Adam breaks this by blessing and forgiving Cal. And after receiving redemption and his father's blessing at the end, Cal who is a Cain figure, overturns this biblical story, and in the end demonstrates that he has the power to choose good. And I think too, there's a lot of hope here, because like we know from like the sheriff with the money and such, that the sheriff's like, you know, we've done some illegal things and looking the other way. We can't look the other way on this one. And like we know, like essentially, like Cal is soon to be the next of kin inheritance of Kathy's wealth and Aaron's wealth. I mean, not Aaron's wealth, Adam's wealth, what remains of it. And he's very set up to be like a very successful. He already has a strong, you know, business repertoire. He's got the girl, and he's got the moral compass of Lee to help guide him in place of his father who's on death's door. And I think like it's a very beautiful picture that like if you step out of it, like not only is Cal forgiven and pardoned by his father, this, you know, stand-in for God, but he's been given the opportunity to do a lot of good down the road eventually, you know, with everything that comes after the final note in the book.
I agree. I think that that closing piece is, you know, and essentially Timshel is the same thing God said to Cain, you know, in his last, you know, in the last parts of the story of Cain too, you know, so it's like, and then from the way that Steinbeck's defined what Timshel means, like he is just, you know, imparting on his son, like you have the choice, you have that, you know, like, and it's the exact same thing that essentially God said to Cain, but then yeah, we do see where thou mayest. So.
What comes after that? The choice.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, that is, you know, the conclusion to East of Eden. We absolutely loved it. We highly recommend it. I don't know about you, Pat, but I think it's the best work of fiction I've read. Like, it's definitely lingered with me the most of any book I can remember reading. And it's, I think, going to have an impact on my life because I already still know, like, I find myself reflecting on parts of it, you know, throughout the week in my own life and how I carry myself. Yeah, man. What about you? Like closing thoughts and feelings that you're taking away from the book?
Yeah, I think that the nature of the story and the fact that nothing, nothing really, really exciting happens throughout the whole story. It's a pretty simple. There's not action or big drama or these things. And as far as the things going on, it's just telling the story of a family of two generations of a family. But the beauty of the writing is that it is full of drama and huge events and big choices and life-changing things through just simple mechanics. And so it's really relatable. And as you read it, you just, like we've said before, almost every single character in the book, I've seen every trait of every character in somebody I know or somewhere in my life or in the essence of something. And so it's, as you read through it, it just does grab onto the reader because you feel like you know the story.
Yeah, I guess if there's anyone you hope you are from the book, anyone you hope you become, who is it? Like when you walk away from the book, who's the person that you're like, gosh, I hope each day I'm a little bit more like that guy?
Man, I think it's like Sam Hamilton is pretty much way up there on the list.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Lee, also a guy I'd like to be like. But I think I am Cal, which I think is that's like the
point.
Maybe the point too, you know. But I like Sam Hamilton's life.
Yeah, I think you know, I definitely 100% relate more to Cal than anyone. But I also hope that one day, you know, because I've had the Sam Hamiltons and the Lees. I still got a couple of them in my life, thankfully. I hope one day someone looks back at me and I've been able to impart to them, you know, the wisdom and kindness and forgiveness and encouragement that would make them think of me as a Lee or Samuel Hamilton character.
For sure.
But Anyways, hey, if you enjoyed that, let us know. We hope you enjoyed the book. You can definitely get it through our links and stuff like we already mentioned before. But please do give it a read. It's such a great book. And let us know your thoughts and ideas and opinions on the commentary of the novel, and what themes you saw, what characters you liked. And I think with that, till next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.